Hey there, folks. Are you passionate about democracy and concerned about the rise of authoritarianism? Do you feel like your voice just isn't being heard? Well, I do too. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about the Coffee with Courage podcast. It's an Oklahoma-based grassroots movement, just like you and me, dedicated to promoting
Coffee
democracy
with Courage.
and, most importantly, empowering your voice at the ballot box. So, join host Kevin Dawson. He's got some great things to say. And let's make some noise together. It's time we were heard.
And good afternoon. Hey, this is our inaugural run. We tried this earlier and it failed on us. And so we're coming back and trying number 2. So please bear with us as we're trying to work through this, but I think we've got a good program. I'm really excited about Coffee with Courage. And for all of you coffee supporters and fans who have been with us for the last 2 years, this is our new program. The plan is that this will be aired and we will do it live on either Tuesday or Wednesday every week around 6 to 7 p.m. It may change just a little bit, but today we have a little program for you. I hope you'll enjoy this. It's just kind of kicking it off, just kind of getting back in the feel of doing things as we get going. We're going to start inviting more guests, and we're going to really enjoy having those conversations just like we did on our old program. So please sit back and enjoy this. I think you'll really, you'll appreciate the hard work that we're putting into it and the content that we're going to start sharing with you in the future. Coffee with Courage podcast. Coffee with Courage is an Oklahoma-based progressive grassroots movement to focus on promoting democracy and resisting authoritarianism. This is why I am not a Bible-thumping, hypocritical Christian nationalist. Open quote, I'm a liberal, period, close quote. At least that is what I think Jesus would say. Remember the WWJD bracelets? This is what I thought they meant. So what if I told you I am a liberal? What if I said I believe in the conservative values of the Bible and its teachings as long as the commandments of Jesus Christ is first, foremost, and above all Christian teachings? You know, Matthew 22, 36 through 40. 36, teacher, which is the greatest commandment of the law? 37, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind. 38. This is the first and greatest commandment. 39. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. 40. All the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. But this doesn't mean what a lot of you apparently think it does. Let's break it down. Because quite frankly, I'm getting a little bit tired of being told what I believe and what I stand for. Spoiler alert, not every liberal is the same. The majority of liberals I know think along roughly these same lines. And I'm going to give you some information that follows that was written by, at least who I think it was written by, Lori Gallagher Witt. And I think she attributed it to Ron Howard at some point. I don't know. But I like what she wrote, and I'm going to repeat it here. Number 1, I believe a country should take care of its weakest members. A country cannot call itself civilized when its children, disabled, sick, and elderly are neglected, period. Number 2, I believe health care is a right, not a privilege. Somehow that's interpreted as I believe Obamacare is the end-all, be-all. This is not the case. I'm fully aware that the ACA has problems, that a national healthcare system would require everyone to chip in, and that it's impossible to create one that is devoid of flaws. But I've yet to hear an argument against it that makes let people die because they can't afford health care a better alternative. I believe health care should be far cheaper than it is, and that everyone should have access to it. And no, I'm not opposed to paying higher taxes in the name of making that happen, but I am opposed to people profiteering off of affordable health care. Number 3, I believe education should be affordable. It doesn't necessarily have to be free, though it works in other countries, so I'm mystified as to why it can't work in the United States. But at the end of the day, there is no excuse for students graduating college saddled with 5 or 6-figure debt. That just makes no sense. Number 4, I don't believe your money should be taken from you and given to people who don't want to work. I have literally never encountered anyone who believes this, ever. I just have a massive moral problem with a society where a handful of people can process the majority of the wealth while there are people literally starving to death, freezing to death, or dying because they can't afford to go to a doctor. And many of those people are our most cherished heroes, veterans of our military. That's unconscionable. Fair wages, lower housing costs, universal health care, affordable education, and the wealthy actually paying their share would go a long way toward alleviating this. Somehow believing that makes me a communist. Number 5, I don't throw around I'm willing to pay higher taxes lightly. If I'm suggesting something that involves paying more, well, it's because I'm fine with paying my share as long as it's actually going to something besides lining corporate pockets or bombing other countries while Americans die without health care. Number 6, I believe companies should be required to pay their employees a decent, livable wage. Somehow this is always interpreted as me wanting burger flippers to be able to afford a penthouse apartment and a Mercedes. What it actually means is that no one should have to work 3 full-time jobs just to keep their head above water. Restaurant servers should not have to rely on tips. Multi-billion-dollar companies should not have employees working for them who are on food stamps. Workers shouldn't have to work themselves into the ground just to barely make ends meet, and minimum wage should be enough for someone to work 40 hours and live. Number 7, I am not anti-Christian. I have no desire to stop Christians from being Christians, to close churches, to ban the Bible, to forbid prayer in school, etc. As I said before, I am a Christian. By the way, prayer in school is not illegal. Compulsory prayer in school is and should be illegal. All I ask for is that Christians recognize my right to live to my beliefs. When I get pissed off that a politician is trying to legislate scripture into law, I'm not offended by Christianity. I'm offended that you're trying to force me to live by your religion's rules. You know how you get really upset about the thought of Muslims imposing Sharia law on you? That's how I feel about Christians trying to impose biblical law on me. Be a Christian, like me. Do your thing. Just don't force it on others. This is the melting pot of the world. Not everybody in America is going to be a Christian. Treat other people with respect. Number 8, I don't believe LGBT people should have more rights than you. I just believe they should have the same rights as you. Number 9, I don't believe illegal immigrants should come to America and have the world at their feet, especially since this isn't what they do. Spoiler, undocumented immigrants are ineligible for all those programs they're supposed to be abusing. If they're stealing your job because your employer is hiring illegal immigrants, then that's on your employer. I believe there are far more humane ways to handle undocumented immigration than our current practices, i.e. detaining children, splitting up families, ending DACA, etc. I certainly do not agree with the federal government building concentration camps in Texas or somehow making undocumented immigrants criminals the same as terrorists and sending them to Guantanamo Bay. Statistics prove over and over and over that first generation immigrants are far safer to live next to than people who are already U.S. citizens. Or I don't agree with sending people who have been in the United States for years, decades in some cases, who have been productive members of society, and shipping them off because they just don't have a birth certificate. Think about this. When your grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents came to the United States, they didn't have documentation when they came here either. Number 10, I don't believe the government should regulate everything. But since greed is such a driving force in our country, we need regulations to prevent cut corners, environmental destruction, tainted food and water, unsafe materials in consumable goods or medical equipment, etc. It's not that I want the government's hands in everything. I just don't trust people trying to make money to ensure that their products, practices, etc. are actually safe. Is the government devoid of shoddiness? Of course not. But with those regulations in place, consumers have recourse if they are harmed, and companies are liable for medical bills, environmental cleanup, etc. Just kind of seems like common sense when the alternative to government regulation is letting companies bring their bottom line into the equation. Number 11, I believe our current administration is fascist. Not because I dislike them because I can't get over the election, but because I've spent too many years reading and learning about the Third Reich to miss the similarities. Not because any administration I dislike must be Nazis, but because things are actually mirroring authoritarian and fascist regimes from the past right here in America today. Number 12, I believe the systemic racism, misogyny in our society is much worse than many people think and desperately needs to be addressed, which means those with privilege, white, straight, male, economic, etc., need to start listening, even if you don't like what you're hearing, so we can start dismantling everything that's causing people to be marginalized. 13, I'm not interested in coming after your blessed guns, nor is anyone serving in government. What I am interested in is the enforcement of present laws and enacting new common sense gun regulations. Got another opinion? Put it on your page, not mine. 14, I believe in so-called political correctness. I prefer to think it's social politeness. If I call you Chuck and you say you prefer to be called Charles, I'll call you Charles. You get where I'm going with this? It's the polite thing to do. Not because everyone has a delicate snowflake mentality, but because, as Maya Angelou put it, when we know better, we do better. When someone tells you that a term or a phrase is more accurate, less harmful than the one you're using, you know better and you shouldn't use it. So why not be better? And why not do better? How does it hurt you to not hurt another person? Number 15, I believe in funding sustainable energy, including offering education to people currently working in coal and oil so they can change jobs. There are too many sustainable options available for us to continue with coal and oil. Sorry, billionaires, maybe try investing in something else. Number 16, I believe that women should not be treated as separate class of humans. They should be paid the same as men who do the same work, should have the same rights as men, and should be free from abuse. Why on earth shouldn't they be? It's a woman's body, not yours. Don't dictate your morality to her on how she's going to use her body. I think that pretty much covers it. Bottom line is that I'm a liberal because I think we should take care of each other. That doesn't mean we should work 80 hours of work so your lazy neighbor can get all of your money. It just means I don't believe there is any scenario in which preventable suffering is an accountable outcome as long as money is saved. Money is not the end-all, do-all. And again, like I said earlier, I want to attribute these words that I just spoke to Lori Gallagher Witt. I don't know her from anybody, but apparently she wrote this, and she may have given it to Ron Howard, who may have put it somewhere, and it might be attributed to him. These are not all my words, so I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Thank you, Lori. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Coffee with Courage podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, and click on the notification icon to receive notification when our next podcast is released. Please help us to continue to fight fascism and authoritarianism throughout our country. Have the courage to speak up and fight back. This episode of Coffee with Courage podcast is brought to you by VeteransAgainstFascism.com. VAF is a group of veterans whose mission is to defeat fascism and fascist politicians in the United States of America. Email them at info@veteransagainstfascism.com. Help us in our mission. Donate today by going to veteransagainstfascism.com support US. Well, that's bringing us to the end of our very first podcast on Coffee with Courage. As many of you are aware, we had a very good podcast that went on for several years, a couple of years anyway. And we ended up having to shut that down, and we're re-energized now, and we're trying to get this podcast up and running. And it's going to be an exciting one. So go ahead and put down on the bottom here that you liked it. I appreciate whenever you do that, because that gives me more feedback on what you like or you don't like. The other thing is, subscribe to us in YouTube so that we know so that you know when we put out new podcasts. And also on that bell icon, go ahead and click on that, and that'll notify you when we have new YouTube content for you to watch. Hey folks, thanks for joining us on Coffee with Courage. And until the next time, hey, please be safe.